I didn't even know if I was gonna make this video, but I feel like it's an appropriate time. I'm gonna try and be as quick as I can, so pardon me while I take on the persona of a cartoon mother. So, Disney's Wish came out recently, and people have been trashing it non-stop online. I'm speaking as someone who hasn't seen it yet, but if I do see it before this video goes up, I'll just put my thoughts here. I feel like this is a big problem with critics and reviews these days, that they're too harsh, nitpicky, pretentious, and sometimes flat-out bigoted. You'll see a lot of bigotry in toxic fandoms, a prime example being Star Wars and Marvel. For instance, I've seen people say that Rey being a Palpatine is a dumb plot twist, but I've never heard anybody explain why it's dumb. I personally thought it was an interesting twist that pulled the rug out from under you that no one saw coming. Because all the criticisms I've seen of the recent sequel trilogy being racist or sexist, I've grown to hate hearing criticism of the sequel trilogy altogether, even if it's valid. This is why I hate the word woke, because it's a word that bigots use to shallowly criticize something just for being diverse and inclusive. As if that's a bad thing. I understand that some things can be preachy, but for the most part, being diverse, inclusive, and sharing new stories is a good thing.
That's because it's not for you. Because you have everything.
Everything is for you. And this one thing is for him.
There are also some opinions I just don't want to hear, you know? While I know there are people who don't like Book of Life, I will respectfully ask them to piss off. And that's perfectly valid. But that's not why I'm here. I often disagree with the critics, and I'm gonna guess so do you. I feel like they're often very pretentious and stuck up. I'm gonna use the Mario and FNAF movies as examples. The critics hated them, while the fans loved them. Now, I'm not a Mario fan, but I had a lot of fun watching the Mario movie and caught a lot of references from the games. And I know nothing about Five Nights at Freddy's, and I don't plan on watching the movie because I'm not into horror. But I'll side with the fans here. I think the main problem with critics is that they don't know how to have fun and enjoy things. Maybe if they stopped trying to look for deeper meanings and metaphors, they'd enjoy more movies. There will be a movie with a glass of water in an empty room and the critics will call it a masterpiece because it's a metaphor for the working class. Not that really big, dramatic movies are bad or anything. A lot of them are very good. I'm just saying the critics shouldn't expect every single movie in existence to be that way. And neither should you. Also, can we please stop calling movies a failure because of what they make on opening day? The movie just came out. Give it time to make money. You guys made the same mistake with Elemental, and we all know what happened there.
Say something nice to it.
Okay. Let me just think for a second. Hi, little plant.
Not all Disney movies make billions anyway, and they've had their fair share of flops. On average, their movies make millions, not billions. Okay, I'll stop. Now let's get back to the issue at hand, Wish. I feel like what's going on here is that Disney fans cannot be satisfied. They complain about the remakes and say they want original stories. We get original stories, and they complain that they suck. What do you want, sheeple? And the reason Disney fans can't be satisfied is because most of them are blinded by nostalgia. I've seen so many TikToks comparing modern and old Disney, and it pisses me off to no end. Why is everything new from Disney bad all of a sudden? Is it for the bigoted reasons I mentioned earlier? Because I wouldn't be surprised. I understand people have their own preferences and opinions, but some criticisms I've seen are just dumb. Now, with that being said, let me go over the most common complaints I've seen about Wish. The animation. To be fair, this one's a little more subjective. Some people say it looks unfinished, but I 100% disagree. I personally don't get the bad screens problem when the trailers came out, because I was still able to see the watercolor effect they were going for, and I think it's beautiful. They're combining 2D and 3D animation, which is something a lot of movies are doing nowadays. The villain song sucks. People have been comparing the villain song from Wish to Hellfire of all things. These are two completely different villains with different personalities, So obviously, their songs are going to reflect that. And people have been saying that the song sounds like pop music, and it really doesn't. And I'm glad that people have pointed out that there are other upbeat villain songs. It's just a dumb thing, I don't know. Just by listening to the song, I was able to tell that the king is a manipulative, charismatic, gaslighting narcissist, and Chris Pine absolutely delivered. The song gave me the vibe that this would be something a narcissistic politician would sing. And leave Lin-Manuel Miranda out of this. He brought us Hamilton, In the Heights, Encanto, Vivo, Little Mermaid's new songs, Moana, Tick Tick Boom. You dare insult the man who brought us We Don't Talk About Bruno? Where do you come off? It's cliche and nostalgic. This is probably the dumbest complaint I've ever seen, because the whole point of this movie is to be an homage to Disney. You have the commoner princess, a royal villain, magic. They even brought back the green equals evil thing that most all of the Disney movies have. And based on what I've gathered, isn't that what you wanted? For Disney to go back to their, quote, good movies with these same qualities? And you're complaining that Disney didn't make something original when you want Disney to go back to... Do you see why this is exhausting? Not to mention, some concept art for the movie has come out, and people have said we've been robbed of a potentially great movie. And you know, I heard about some of the things they scrapped, and yeah, it does sound interesting. But we have what we have. Did Disney scrap a potentially interesting story? Maybe. But that gives you fan fiction material, doesn't it? Again, we have what we have, so suck it up. Plus, we would have missed out on this adorable little guy. Also, being mad that Disney made a character to sell merch off of is like being mad that ice is cold. I feel like when people constantly compare modern to old Disney, it prevents them from enjoying the modern movies. The classics are classic for a reason, but modern movies are good in their own way.
Designed it.
I never look back, darling. It distracts from the now.
So something I forgot to mention in my points is that a lot of people have pointed out that Disney have been using a lot of quirky protagonists recently. And yeah, I agree that that's a thing that they've been doing a lot. I personally don't care. I really do find these characters to be relatable to a certain extent. And honestly, I really find them charming. And it's not like their only personality trait is quirky. To be honest, I feel like we're all a bit quirky and silly when we're by ourselves, right? Okay, I know this whole rant has me sounding like...
Am I the only one who understands the complexities of this ambitious cinematic masterpiece? This movie isn't stupid! You're stupid!
But that's not what I'm trying to say. Because again, as of writing this, and as of talking into a microphone, under a blanket, I have not seen the movie yet. I'm not saying you have to like Wish. If you didn't like it, you didn't like it. Everyone's entitled to their own thoughts. What I am saying is to not be so harsh. What do I mean by this? Well, I think the best way to explain is to turn to one of my favorite Pixar movies. In many ways, the work of a critic is easy. We risk very little, yet enjoy a position over those who offer up their work and their selves to our judgment. We thrive on negative criticism, which is fun to write and to read, but the bitter truth we critics must face is that in the grand scheme of things, the average piece of junk is probably more meaningful than our criticism designating it so. But there are times when a critic truly risks something, and that is in the discovery and defense of the new. The world is often unkind to new talent, new creation. The new needs friends. Not everyone can become a great artist, but a great artist can come from anywhere. As fun as it is to listen to bad movie reviews, we need to understand some things aren't as bad as we make them out to be. I've seen people say the movie isn't as bad as the reviews say it is. Is it flawed? Sure, but what movie is it? It's just your average Disney movie. Not to mention, there are people who actually enjoy some of the stuff we so harshly review. In my Jack and the Cuckoo Clock Heart video, I mentioned that while I don't like the movie as a whole, I'm aware that there are some people who call this their favorite movie. And I acknowledge that there are some good things about it, but it just wasn't for me. But from what I've seen, it feels like people are nitpicking this movie and bullying it for no reason. An online friend pointed this out to me, but do people really hate this movie as much as they say they do? Or are they just taking their hate of Disney as a company out on this movie? Yes, Disney has made decisions that made our stomachs turn, but not liking one of their movies is not a slap in the face to society. Maybe you had your expectations a bit too high. I get it's Disney, but they're not making masterpieces left and right. And let's be real, Disney not making billions per movie means nothing. Disney, of all companies, is not gonna lose money anytime soon. I'm not saying you have to like every single Disney movie or every new movie in general, but don't jump at every opportunity to trash a movie for being cliche, predictable, formulaic, or diverse. And keep in mind that no matter how much you criticize something, there are people who enjoy what you're criticizing. For instance, I thought Guardians 3 was good, but not as good as everyone says. Seeing a completely different Gamora was off-putting to me, and I prefer the second one. I thought The Good Dinosaur was sweet, but overall I thought it was kind of boring. I don't like Way of Water. It was long and kind of boring, and those movies just aren't for me. See how you can criticize something without making it sound like it's the worst thing to ever happen to entertainment? This is how I'm gonna approach all of my reviews. Criticizing what I don't like while keeping in mind that people might like what I'm talking about. You know, I'm gonna be critical, but I'm not gonna be a bully, you know? Overall, diversity isn't bad. Don't compare the old with the new too much. Don't cherry pick every little thing for the sake of calling it bad. And be a little kinder with your criticisms. Because the average piece of junk is probably more meaningful than our criticism designating it so. Disney is not losing its touch, and it never was. The creative side, that is. I'd say it needs new management as a company. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'll be in my front row seat watching the movie Wish. Happy birthday, Disney. Here's to another 100 years. So I look up at the stars to guide me, and throw caution to every warning sign. I'm sure there will be challenges that find me, but I can take them on one at a time. So I make this a wish to have something more for us than this.